Hi everyone, welcome, and today we're going to be talking about success and money mindset on the U Version 2 Summit and how our level of wealth is a direct reflection of our thinking level. Today's wonderful guest, Nikk Seagren, is the co-founder of Inspire Tribe, and she's a leading expert in conscious acceleration. And she's going to be sharing her insights on how we can shift our mindset in order to effortlessly create a life that delivers financial success, as well as a deep sense of joy and happiness. So welcome, Nikk.
Hi, everyone. And hi, Peta.
Hi. Now, Nikk, your career has been quite a diverse one, leading you up to becoming a mindset coach. You actually started out as an engineer?
That's right. So I guess I've turned over a lot of stones as I've gone through the years. And that's why I've sort of landed on coaching very strongly, because I was willing to get out there and have a bash at lots of different things and work out where my true passion lay. So it's been a very interesting process.
Well, tell us about your foray into sort of wealth creation and mortgage broking and your journey to becoming a coach.
Okay, good. I started off doing, I guess, what many people do, which is I went into an industry that I was good at. So in high school and primary school, I was very good at numbers. So I thought, well, if I'm good at numbers, then I should go and do a career in numbers. And that led me into engineering to start with. It's a natural university degree if you're good at numbers. I didn't really like engineering, but decided to stick with it because if you're good with numbers, then it's a good career to have. And I thought it'll teach me something and I'll learn how to learn. So that sort of one thing progressed to another. But what I did was I kept on staying with what I thought I was good at and what seemed like the logical path to take. So I went from engineering into eventually to finance broking. And people go, where's the link? But the link is numbers. And I was passionate about property investing in my early days, so I got into finance broking. During that time, I was very interested in learning how to grow a business. And I went to many different courses. Early in my career, probably in the first 10 years, spent about $100,000 going to different courses, watching some of Australia's best people, entrepreneurs. And I was very keen to learn what they did to go to the next level. What I found, though, was they taught me a lot of good how, but when I went back home, I didn't implement a lot of the how, and I'm not sure if anyone listening has felt that, but it was very frustrating to know good information but not actually feel that I could apply it. And probably a couple of courses in, one of the guys, it was Brad Sugars, said to me, Nikk, your mindset's all wrong. And I'm like, why don't you teach me about my mindset? Because well, I can see that I'm limited in the way that I'm thinking, but I don't know how to shift it. And I went from a number of different courses after that where my mindset was still limiting me. It wasn't all bad, though. I run a company called Vision Finance, and that company is still very successful, but it was limited by myself. So I got to a point in time where I actually ended up going to see a coach to see if I could shift the way that I think. So that was my first intro.
What did you learn, Nikk, about that link between mindset and success, both financial and personal?
Well, what I learnt was it's a very frustrating journey unless you've got a clear path ahead of you. And the money that I was spending, eventually I started to watch the people that were at the front of the room, and rather than try to learn from them, it was more watching what they did and looking at how they were being different to and thinking differently to the way that I was thinking. And I got to a stage, it was quite frustrating. It was very intense in a personal sort of way, because the frustration is borderline painful, because I was desperate to move forward to that next level. And I know I've spoken to many other people who have been there themselves. It doesn't matter whether you're a one-man band business or running a $10 million business, as some of our clients are now. When you get to a stage where you've plateaued and you want to go to the next level, there's that intense desire to shift. So what I did was, during the next sort of $150,000 that I invested, I documented everything. So I thought, if I'm going to shift my mindset, I'm going to work out where I am and document every single stage to work out where the shift happens and what's the difference when I get to the other side. So it was still a very organic process for me, but one where I knew I was taking all the notes and would be able to look back. So as an engineer, I thought, if I can go through it, I can create a process that will help other people to see the signs more quickly. So there was sort of a joy in going through the pain. The second time around, I got a very good coach, and she helped me to organically go through each of my unconscious barriers. And that's what I found out about mindset, is consciously, the 3% of conscious thought that we grow up with and we learn about at school, that guides us very well until about the age of, I'm going to say 25 for most people. So by the age of 25, we know what we know, and the logical thinking starts to limit us. And it's the unconscious part that we then need to work with if we want to release those hooks, that feeling of being held back by ourselves. It's the unconscious processes that we need to start to deal with in order to accelerate our growth.
Why is it that people get stuck stuck in this mindset, and what are some of the symptoms that you see of getting stuck in, with some of these limiting beliefs around money and mindset issues?
Well, okay, it's good that you talk about money there, because it's during the finance business that I started to see the difference between people who had limited mindsets, because of seeing hundreds of people every year, and some people who were from, I studied engineering, I was quite good at school, but I was sitting in front of people who weren't necessarily good at school but were doing very well financially, and then I'd sit across the table from people who were highly intelligent but financially just not doing very well at all, and I was like, it's really interesting to watch the difference. And it's always easier to see the issues in other people before you see them in yourself. So I had about 7 years of seeing the issues in other people, and what I noticed was, with regards to money and making money in terms of property and investment, is that the way when people had limited thinking and they weren't prepared to acknowledge their limited thinking, that literally hindered their whole financial growth. Whereas when people were, as I say, not necessarily more intelligent, but when they're happy to be aware of their limitations and notice when they were coming up against a wall, and they would ask enough questions and be very open to the idea of moving forward, those people would learn and take action and do things that the more intelligent, less open-minded people would do. So it was very interesting to watch the difference over 10 years of the clients who grew quickly and the clients who came and bought the house and were so worried and fixated on the old idea that their parents had given them, that I must pay off my house before I can do anything, and over 10 years they just lost the chance to access a lot of wealth that they could have otherwise accessed. So the key thing is, when we're born as kids, 0 to 7, we're copying what our parents do, and it's a very good strategy when we're young. And the trick is, as an adult, to go, okay, I'm now an adult and I better go back and analyse some of those unconscious strategies and patterns that I copied off my parents and work out which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to get rid of. So.
It's interesting that you shared that we don't actually always realise that we are stuck with the limited thinking. What are some of the symptoms, or what are some questions that we could ask ourselves to bring about some awareness as to whether that limited thinking is really holding us back?
Right, so there's two ways that you can look at that. The first way is logically. So if you're seeing the same problem this year as you saw last year, you're stuck. If it's a similar version of the same problem as last year, so sometimes we can, for example, in my other business, for about 5 years, the problems were slightly better, slightly more evolved problems than the year before, but it was like, I want to grow another 10% and another 10%. I'm still solving the same problem of growing another incremental amount, if that makes sense. So looping, or having the same discussion with the same people and not moving forward. So a mentor said the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the problems that you can solve. So if your problems aren't significantly bigger and better quality this year, you're stuck and you're looping. Perhaps an even better way, though, is to look at the relationships that you have around you. So if you've got relationships that are frustrating in your life, whether that be your primary relationship or your work, either environment, or for some people both environments, that can be a big signal. And then the final one would be how you feel. So I often talk to people who are thinking about coaching, and I can explain, if you've ever felt that I feel like I've got more to give, and it's in here, I don't know how to get it out, that's another big sign.
With your engineering background, I think that that's wonderful that you've been able to develop your own systems and your own IP around this success mindset. Are you able to share with us a little bit about that?
I thought today, I run along the thinking of your income level is determined by your thinking level. So today I thought, rather than looking at the investment front, we'd look at it on a business front, because I'm sure there'll be lots of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and that sort of thing listening. So, okay, so Peter, I'm going to run you through the mindset evolution scale. And due to the technical issues that we've just discovered, okay, so excuse me every now and then dropping my head to write, okay? So the key with the mindset evolution scale is it's awareness. So when you can plot where you are, you can start to hear the language of what your unconscious is. Where you're unconscious, you might know where you want to sit, but you've got to look at where do I unconsciously sit, and then once you've got awareness on that, you can start to look at, okay, how do I shift from where I am to where I want to be, okay? Is dogmatic. The key about dogmatic is it's a bit my way or the highway. So you can see the little symbol I've got there. It's a symbol of a road. And dogmatic people, you can tell them to do X and they go, okay, and then as soon as you walk away, they're doing Y, because Y is always the way that they've done it. They're not really interested in shifting the way that they do things. Shocking as team members. So if you've got an employee who's dogmatic, they'll be quite ineffective. In fact, they'll be 10% efficient compared to other team members. The interesting thing about a dogmatic personality is it can be very successful for a small group of people. And I'm going to say a small group of people here. So people have the right idea and the right attitude at the right time, and they're rigidly fixed on those ideas and attitudes, but it just happens to fit within the market. And it sees them becoming very successful as business owners. Often, though, that success is riding a wave, and once the wave shifts, that person may not be able to shift their thinking if they've actually got dogmatic thinking. Now, for a business owner, having a little bit of dogmatic thinking is good. Having too much of it is not so good, and not knowing when you're being dogmatic and when you're not. So we're going to say for the general population, dogmatic, 10% effective. Where the majority of people sit is at the next level. And the next level is diligent thinking. So I've got dogmatic, then diligent. Now, the key for diligent is steps 1, 2, 3. So as a team member, they're very handy. Just show me steps 1, 2, 3, and I'll implement them, and I'll implement them as best I can. And when I do that, you'll reward me, won't you? So it's if I do the right thing, I'm going to be rewarded in life. Now, that's a good way of thinking, as long as you're not in business. If you're in business and you're a diligent thinker, it's going to be quite limited. If you're an employee, it can be quite good, as long as you're not expecting to rise too far up the ranks, okay? So diligent can be a very happy place to be. There are a lot of people, though, who have been diligent in their thinking. They've come through the school system and they're like, I want to get further ahead more quickly. And then they find that they need to go to the next level of thinking. And the next level of thinking is determined. So the key with determined thinking is it's really diligent thinking, but I'm going to do it harder, faster, and longer. So it's like the bold version of determined thinking. In fact, I'll go to steps 4 and 5 because I've worked so quickly and so fast and so hard that I'll learn a little bit more than you. Now, determined people as employees are slightly better than diligent people because if there's a problem, a diligent person will go, well, I don't know the right answer, so I've got to stop until someone tells me the right answer, yes? Whereas a determined person will say, I don't know the right answer yet, so I'm going to go anyway, upways, sideways, around, about in order to find the right answer. So they can be quite good as team members, in fact, ideal team members. What happens, though, with determined business owners is there's a never-ending list of to-dos in business. You can keep running as fast and as hard as you like, and you know that every night when you go to bed, there's still going to be a list that's as long as it was at the start of the year, no matter how far into the year you are. In fact, the list is probably longer. The more you go into business, the longer you realize the list is. So determined people eventually get to the stage or the mindset stage, and it's literally they get forced here, is the diagnostic stage. Now, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this on your screen, but the diagnostic stage is literally an eye, okay? It's looking back. It's looking to the side and going, I don't understand why I'm not further ahead. So there's that question of why aren't I doing better? And people, the feeling that comes with this stage is tiredness, bewilderment, frustration, annoyance. So if any of those terms are resonating, then you know you've at or been at the diagnostic stage, okay? Now, most of us have been at the diagnostic stage, even those who have been able to get above it. And one of the key things at the diagnostic stage is there is nothing that you've done wrong. So when you look back, you can't see anything wrong. So there's no answers in asking the question of what have I done wrong. So what most people do is they decide, oh, what I'll do is I need a holiday. I'm obviously tired. I need to rejuvenate. So I'm going to go on a holiday. I'm going to rest for a week or two. Then I'm going to come back and surely then next year it'll be better, okay? Next year I'll be refreshed and it'll be different.
I can definitely relate to this, Nikk.
Good. So the trick is to have conscious awareness of this, okay? If it's unconsciously happening, then you can do the cycle as I did for five or so years. And the cycle generally looks like this. I'm going to draw on my own thing, but it's going back down to the diligent thing. And we go back and we're good at the start of the year and we do those exercise programs. And then we realize we've got to be determined again, and we get to the end of the year and we'll reassess. So how do we get above the line? I've got a line, and of course going above the line is going to be the most important thing. And the trick with getting above the line is it's not a logical place to go. So we specialize in dealing with logical, intelligent people. The logical is the primary thing. The intelligence, it's not absolutely critical, but it helps and it makes things quicker and more enjoyable for me. To get above the line, it's not a logical place to go, and particularly for very logical people. The first stage of being above the line in terms of mindset is what's called expansive, okay? And it's the symbol there is lots of lines looking upwards, and it's saying what else. So rather than asking what have I done wrong, it's going, okay, I'm here. What else could I do in order to move forward? Not what's right, but what could be better, what could be faster, what could be more efficient, what could be easier. And that's probably one of my favorite questions, what could be easier, what could take me less time. So it's changing the questions that we ask and actually looking out to what's happening maybe in our own industry, what the leaders in our industry are doing, but also looking to other industries and opening ourselves up to what else could be done. So the key with expansiveness is we're not looking for the right way. It's a really big shift. So below the line is very logical. There's a right and there's a wrong. And above the line, we're starting to let go of right and wrong and understand that there really is no right and wrong, but there's lots of other more beneficial ideas and concepts and ways of thinking about things. Now, I talked about unconscious hooks before. For most people, letting go of right and wrong requires them to let go of some of those strategies and patterns that they were given as children that have been very useful and very good to them to date, and working out which ones of those are actually no longer serving them. That makes sense? So the next step, if you can be expansive for long enough, then what happens is lots of different opportunities start to come your way. Now, what can happen is sometimes people are pushed into expansiveness through external forces, so not through their own choice. Now, this can be good for some people and it can be life-changing, but it's a really random way. It's like waiting for Tats Lotto to wait for external chances to take us above the line. So for some people, when their partner or their husband or wife leaves them, all of a sudden their whole world shifts and they've got to go, okay, now I've got to do something different. What else am I going to do? I'd never thought about it, but now I'm forced to thinking about it. And they can't look back to the past and what they've done because the past is no longer available to them as it has been for quite some time. So they become expansive. But what they do is they do it with a below the mind, a diligent mindset, and they become expansive just long enough to grab onto something that feels solid and right, and then they slip back below the line, yeah? Or they jump out of corporate or jump out of their old workforce into being a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, and and they think this is it, but they cling onto that idea with such rigidity that it's diligent thinking, and diligent thinking is not going to get you very far in your own business. It'll just get you a job, okay? So we want to go beyond the job into either a lifestyle choice, so it's not to say you have to have team members, or be expansive enough that you want to bring on team members and can do so. So when you're above the line and being expansive in the true sense of the word, you're open to lots of different things coming up before you feel the need to grab one. And when you do, you go into the next level of mindset, and that's to be embracive. And you'll see that the symbol is very similar to expansive, but it's just grabbing onto one. And I say one, it's grabbing onto one with the idea of, let's see if it's better. Let's see if it's faster. Let's see if it's easier for me to achieve the results that I'm achieving. And in doing so, it's, can I grab that opportunity? And if it doesn't work, it's okay. There's no mistakes up in expansiveness and in embraciveness. It's a very light, I'm going to try it. If it works, great. I'll keep that and hold on to it for as long as it appears to be the best thing, because then I'm going to loop back down to diagnostic and go, what else is out there? Where could I shift and improve? But I'm just going to touch diagnostic briefly and then jump back up to expansiveness and go to the next level. Okay. The final stage is evolved. And it's not quite in terms of the Dalai Lama. So the symbol there is a staircase. It's evolved in terms of last year's problems are no longer this year's problems. So I've got a higher, I've solved smaller problems in the last year, and I now know how to effortlessly move through those. So it's not to say that they won't come up again, but it's to say that when they come up, I can deal with them quickly and efficiently, and they can almost unconsciously be dealt with. And therefore I can now put my mind and my thinking and my feeling into bigger and better quality problems.
How do we move from expansive to embracive to evolve? What are some of the tips that we could take, or some steps that we could take to push through those levels?
So the hardest one is to get up to expansive. So the shift from diagnostic to expansive is where the power is. And one of the best tips there is to start asking what else, and ask what else could I be doing, but ask it with a sense of lightness. So if you feel yourself desperately clinging to a new idea, that's the time to go step back and go, okay, I'm going to deliberately step back from that idea and just have a month, literally a month, where you don't do anything other than ask what else could I do, and note all the things that you could do without actually doing anything different. Now, for many people, the idea of looking at ideas for a month is borderline criminal, but it's so important that I get out there and do more things and do things differently and run as hard and fast as I can. Yes, that sense of diligence and determination is very important, but what's even more important is your ability to do so lightly, so that you can spend 80% of your time focusing on the 20% of things that matter, whereas what most people do is spend 20% of the time on things that matter and 80% of the time on things that they really should be stopping. Okay, so if you spend a month saying, what else could I do? And each time you come up with something that you could potentially do, you can also ask yourself the question, if I was going to do that, what would I need to stop doing? So there's a, what could I add? And also, what could I stop? So the start and stop.
Once we have some of those ideas, the what else ideas, do you have any advice for how you actually sift through those and then work out, what steps to take to start to implement from there with all of those then ideas?
I love your questions, Peta. Very, very good, very intuitive questions. And that's the key to getting above the line. So below the line is very logical. So most people work on what should I logically do? Whereas when we go above the line, we're going to use that 3% of intelligence, but we're going to start to access the 97% of unconscious feeling, that intuitive intelligence. And the reason why we specialize in dealing with intelligent, logical people is they actually don't trust that 97% at all. So from very young, they've worked out that if I think things through, then I accelerate quickly. And if I feel, that can be really messy and really unstable. And so I'm just not going to feel much. I'm going to work on my thinking. It works, as I say, very well until about the ages of anywhere between 25 and 35. And then we cap out. And I say that we because I was there and I was capped for quite a while. And the trick to making that choice of what's the next thing to do is what feels right. So yes, it needs to be logically good, it needs to be a logical good move, but you should be able to have 3 or 4 good logical options, and the choice to make is the one that feels the most inspirational. Now this sounds a little airy-fairy. So as an engineer, when I was going through this process, or should I say an ex-engineer, because I'm really not an engineer. Engineers would hate me saying that I am an engineer, so I'm not. But as I was going through the process, it's like if someone else who's where I was needs to land on the fact that they need to feel through it, there are some processes that, that we obviously go through to say, here's how you can make feeling feel logical. Here's how your logical brain can rest on why feeling is good. But for those of you out there who just need to be given approval to feel, and you'll naturally and easily do it, that's the key, is actually to look forward, and if you've got 5 options, say, how would it feel to do that in the next hour? How would it feel to commit to this first option in the next week? How would it feel a month away, and how would it feel 2 years away? So you'll literally feel through the idea on multiple time scales. And then you do the second, the third, and the fourth idea, and one will come up trumps. One will clearly feel better, maybe not in the short term, but it certainly should feel good within, a week or 2. If it's taking longer than that, I say it's a bad option. Get your logic to think of more ideas. Because this whole idea of doing something that feels bad for a year in order to, get some gain at the end, it's bad logic, okay? I know, I've been there, I've done it, okay? Does that make sense? Good.
It does. Stepping forward into this space and embracing and acting upon these great ideas that we're feeling can bring up a lot of fears for people. How do you have any advice for how, that fear of failure, if this is a great idea and we're feeling it and we're passionate about it and moving forward with it, how do we overcome some of those fears that can come up in that stage?
Okay, another good question. So my answer to that is, sure, you're going to fail. I'm going to look you directly in the eyes as I can in the camera. It's very hard to do that on a consistent basis. But say you are going to fail many, many times. And this process isn't about not failing. It's about being able to do so and go, well, I thought it was good, it felt good, and when it starts to feel bad and when it doesn't seem to be logically good anymore, I'm going to step off quickly and move on to the next idea. So it's that idea of failing quickly and failing fast. And the beauty of being able to do that is you don't waste energy on ideas and projects that you're trying to push through. So that's why people feel tired. They spend so much time continuing to do what they think they should be doing. And it's this whole concept of should. So if you've got the should language or the need to or the must to or the have to language, if you listen to yourself over the next day and you hear lots of that language, I'm going to say you've got some unconscious work to do. So start to look at, why do I feel that I should do that, okay? And it's, when I say unconscious work, it's just checking what strategy, where have I got that idea from? And it can be quite a quick process, and it's linking back to, why do I do it? And I do it because mum and dad did it. Do I still want to do it? Do you know? And moving forward. So that's my 2-minute snapshot there. Is that useful to you? Let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just a little bit curious about the very highest level, so the evolved level. What are some of the signs of someone who is operating at that level, and what are some of the benefits that you can obviously see about being in that place?
Great. It's a big smile. It's joy and happiness. So evolved is a very personal description. It's not, no one else gets to tell you when you're evolved. You get to feel evolved. And for some of us, that will be, we'll get to an evolved stage. So one of our first levels may be when we can say to our family members, I'm not coming to dinner this weekend. You know, I've checked in logically, it's okay, but it feels bad to me. So it doesn't get the tick from both the 3% and the 97%. So it's off. And the empowerment that comes from that means that they've evolved to a point that they haven't been before. Now, for someone in a $10 million business, they might be evolving on a different level when they go, I can now do a JV with a big corporate, whereas previously I've avoided corporate for a particular reason, but I've actually worked through my own challenges and I've moved through my own blocks and I've become expansive and worked out how I can do it so it's safe for me and it's going to give the corporate what they want, and therefore I'm willing to step into that space. So it's very much a personal feeling, and it's the feeling of elation, and you can go, tick, I've just evolved to another level within myself.
I'm sure that there are a lot of people watching, beautiful women watching today that can relate to those certain levels and sort of finding themselves curious about how they can step it up. Do you have any other advice for us about how we can move through, or the next steps, or some practical tips that we can take home?
So I guess one of the most practical tips that there are a couple. So the first one is the concept of responsibility. So who do you think is responsible for where you are now? And the ability to be able to say, I'm 100% responsible for everything that I attract into my life. And look, this is a big concept to take on, and it's one of those ones that took me a bit of, perhaps a couple of weeks of just meditation. How can I actually believe that that's true? Because in today's world, it's very a complex world. So if we look 50 years back, the world was simple. You could literally be diligent and be very successful, or be determined and be very successful. But in today's global population, we need to literally be expansive in order to be successful. And I can tell you that in 50 years' time, expansive is not going to be good enough. It'll be, the world is just accelerating so quickly. But expansive is where it's at the moment. And it's a concept of, I can't control the external. So that's one mindset. So everything outside of me is outside of my control. So it's one belief that we need to hold. But at the same time, we need to hold another belief, which is I'm 100% responsible for everything that I bring into my life. Now, that includes good grades, it includes a good wage, it includes an annoying boss, it includes even sickness and illness. And Yolan and I have had sickness come into our lives in the last couple of months, and the way that we've handled it so easily and well in other people's eyes is to go, yes, it's outside of our control, but also at the same time we're willing to hold on to the idea that we're 100% responsible for it, because this is where the power is. If we continue to say it's not in my control, I can't do anything about it, then we have no power. So we accept that that's true, but we work from this premise of I am 100% responsible, and in doing that, it's an amazing way to live life. Is it true or not that I'm 100% responsible? It doesn't matter. How does the belief serve us, and what does it allow us to do that we couldn't otherwise do? And then I guess the next one is the concept of what is my purpose? So that's such a big question, and I remember literally grappling with that for a period of 10 years. How do I know when I'm in purpose, and what is purpose? And what I worked out through the journey that I went to, sort of the 2 to 3 years where I was really moving through coaching and working out how to shift my thinking from that below the line to above the line, was the most important thing was to have a pre-purpose. And the pre-purpose is a very simple one, and it's to find joy and happiness for myself first. So for you to find joy and happiness for yourself first. And the unconscious programming that often pops up is, oh, that would be selfish. If I look after myself first, that would be selfish. But it's akin to being in an airplane and wanting and knowing that you need to put the oxygen mask on first, and actually believing that so congruently, and that you would put the oxygen mask on first before you did anything for your children, knowing that that's, for those of you who have children, but that's the best thing to do for the kids in the longer term. So a lot of people, and I was one of them, look after others, attempt to look after others in the hope that eventually they'll be looked after. Okay, so I'm going to run my business and do everything for everyone else, and eventually someone will recognize me and pay me a lot of money. But it actually goes the reverse about. So it's to look after yourself. And the concept of being selfish it's interesting. It's like a self-guiding concept, because when you become too selfish, and believe me, you will go there briefly, all of a sudden people around you start to behave in such a way that it's actually no longer joyful for you. So it's self-correcting. So I've gone too far, so I've got to go back. And you come back and you end up finding that line, whereas how do I look after myself? And for some people, they might try A, and A is something that makes them feel good, but it makes all their family members feel bad. So A is not going to be a good long-term position, but it's better than where they were, which is the old position of X, because X felt bad for them. Okay, and maybe good for the family members, but bad for them. So we go to A, bad for the family, good for me. So let's try B. B is still good for me because I've decided it's good for me first. And some of my family members seem to be appreciating it. So it's better than X, the old position, which made me feel bad. It's better than A. I felt good, everyone else felt bad. And so it's not what's right or wrong, what makes me feel happier. Okay, and as I say, the self-correction will come in pretty quickly. When your family gets unhappy, you shift. You find, but the trick is not to shift back to the old position of it makes me feel bad and everyone else happy. I could go on, but my thoughts are re-listen to those two, because the goal is like once you can do those first two steps of taking responsibility and starting to shift your world such that it feels good for you, amazing stuff starts to happen.
That advice sounds really amazing and really practical, and I know I could talk about this all day. I'm totally loving this conversation, and there's so much great stuff in there. You've got a really great offer for all of the Summit viewers that I'm excited for you to share with everyone.
So it's a 15-minute acceleration session with either myself or Yolande. Likely to be myself in the next month or two, but Yolande is my business partner in Inspire Tribe. Now, it may take us a little while to get back to everyone, but we are guaranteeing that we will get back to everyone. And the acceleration session is just looking at exactly where you're at now and where you need to be, and clearly identifying the gap. Because when we know what joy and happiness is for ourselves in the short term, then it starts to get us on track to being on our purpose. So if we're on our pre-purpose of making ourselves happy, our purpose will naturally pop up. I probably didn't say that previously, but that's why getting clear on what's your gap at the moment, where are you and where would you like to be, and having crystal clear identification of that is very powerful in itself. So we're happy to offer that to all the listeners. So as I say, depending on time frames as to when we can fit it in, but we will get to everyone.
Thank you. That's such a wonderful gift, and there'll be a button obviously below the video today. You'll be able to click through and access details of how you can have the 15-minute session with Nikk or Yolande, and that would be obviously a lot of great value to particularly all of our audience who are entrepreneurs, business owners, and are really looking to step their business or their career up to the next level.
Thanks for your time today, Peta.
It's been really great having you, Nikk. I've really enjoyed our conversation. There's been lots and lots of nodding and yes, and that's me, and I totally relate going on that the audience probably hasn't seen. So thrilled that you've been able to join us, and thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom, and I look forward to hearing more from the Inspire Tribe. Jump on and register for Nikk's great newsletter. There's lots of awesome mindset tips on there as well, and I'd highly recommend to stay connected and get all of the goodness that comes out regularly in that newsletter.
Thanks, Peta, and thanks also for running such a great group. It's great to see so many wonderful coaches with all their ideas and inspirations on your site, so well done.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow for the next interview in the YouVersion 2 Summit. Bye for now.